we'll get right into the alumni panel now. So again, like I mentioned, these four are incredible. Feel free to add any questions you have for them in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. And so I guess why don't we start with a quick introduction? We can do alphabetical order. Maybe Dragos, Eliana, Elva, and then Yolanda.
Hey guys, I'm Dragos. I help students and new grads land jobs. But how I do that, it's through my platform called PathPeer. So it connects students to professionals such that they can network their way to job offers. And they also sell a course that gives people how to do their resumes, cover letters, and network. So so far, I've helped students land jobs at like RBC, Deloitte, Sun Life, Wealthsimple, Stack It Up, like a bunch of them. Yep.
Hi everyone, I'm Eliana. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the co-founders of NG Connect. We are a virtual clubhouse and mentorship network for neurodivergent adults. And I don't know what else to say. I don't know. I'm a person. You can connect with me if I can be helpful. I myself have ADHD and some mental health disabilities, which really inspired my journey. And I really believe that we're stronger together and really appreciate all the mentorship and networking that YIC provides as well. So feel free to reach out.
Hi everyone, my name is Alva, and I'm also one of the co-founders of 2020 Mission. We talked a little bit about it in the video. We participated in the Youth Impact Challenge in 2023 and 2024. And we, like you said, we collect used eyeglasses and donate them for reuse through mission trips.
Hi guys, I'm Yolanda, and I competed in 2022 with my nonprofit organization, Repeat Floral. We basically repurpose used wedding flowers to those who service their community and who would appreciate them, such as hospitals and nursing homes.
Awesome. So thank you guys for introducing yourselves. I think you guys are all being pretty humble with your projects, so I'm sure we'll get into it more and really get that inspiration, that spark for social and environmental impact out of you guys. So maybe we can go in the same order. Just maybe talk about the inspiration behind your project. Like what were some of the personal stories behind why you did what you did, and eventually what got you into YIC and kind of where you are at now with each of your respective organizations.
I think I'm first. So I started PathPeer. It's a little bit long story, but I'll do the short version. In university, I had a really bad co-op, like a really bad internship, and I didn't have the best grades, didn't have experience. So for me, I felt like in a very low period of my life, and networking got me out of that. So I talked to 50 professionals in 2, 3 months, and from those, I land referrals and interviews at top tier jobs. So from those, I realized like how powerful networking can be. And years later, once I was toying around with different startup ideas, I realized most people weren't networking because it's very tedious, and also it's like a black box. People don't know how to do it. So I started PathPeer to solve that, to make it extremely easy, streamline it, and help people see the power of networking. So what was the other question? There was like two questions maybe in one.
It was mostly about the initial like motivation and inspiration behind
Yeah.
it, which you covered perfectly. So that's really
So
great to hear.
okay.
Yeah, for me, as I mentioned, I have ADHD, and in university, I was just like really, really struggling and going through it, to be honest. Like my mental health was not good, but I felt really like alone at that time, and like I was really just feeling overwhelmed by like all like the different demands in my life, whether it's like family or school. And then I ended up connecting with a mentor that also happened to have ADHD completely by accident, and honestly, that relationship completely changed my life. She really helped me learn strategies to work like with my brain instead of against it. And I think it's just a really comforting feeling to know that there's other people that are like you that have struggled with some of the things that you have, but that have found a path that works well for them and they're living a good life on like their own terms. And so just seeing, her happy in like a career that I was interested in with like a cute partner and dog. The dog's cute, not the partner. So just to clarify. Um, anyways, I'm not making, but like, she's living this like cute life and everything. And feeling good as a person. So I think that that really inspired me to just try and create more spaces where people could connect that way. A lot of people, I think, in general these days feel very like alone on their journeys, and we need more like third places for people to come together for social support and then also for more like practical, like real advice. So we try and be like kind of anti-LinkedIn, where LinkedIn is very about building your own like personal brand and like, sharing all the wins and celebrations, but there's not like a lot of places where you can go and be vulnerable and really ask like, what did my manager mean by this? Or like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Does anybody else, have any advice? What's worked for you? Now we've grown to being close to 1,000 members strong. We have members in close to 30 countries, and we have facilitated more than 800 mentorship and peer connections. And I'm doing it full time, so I'm feeling really, really grateful for that.
I'd like to give like credit to the very, very beginning of 2020 mission to Kobe. It was like kind of his idea at the very beginning, when he was little. He developed myopia, and that affected his vision, especially when he's playing basketball. You can imagine how hard it is to, aim for the hoop when you can't really see. And I also have really poor vision. I've actually worn glasses since I was like 4 years old. So, like, as a child, a toddler, I was wearing glasses. You can imagine that. That also really affected my vision, especially because I really, really liked to draw when I was little. And our other co-founder, Jason, he was a very enthusiastic pianist, so that also kind of affected his vision, or his poor vision affected that. Um, and together, we kind of just realized how overlooked vision is, because it's so normalized here, as here because everyone wears contacts, everyone wears glasses, but in underserved communities, not everyone has access to that. It's very inaffordable and inaccessible. So that's kind of how we started 2020 mission.
Thank you for that. Everyone's stories are great. It's all it's awesome to be here at YIC. And yeah, so Repeat Floral started in kind of during COVID in 2021. And basically the idea behind it was that we, as kids, me and my high school friends, we were basically bored. We were kind of wondering if there was a way that we can create more human connection during a time where everyone was kind of closed off, and we just wanted to do something with our creativity. And we came across the idea, like we were doing a family dinner, and then one of our parents was saying that the wedding industry, there were a lot of flowers going to waste, and we were kind of just playing with that idea. And we thought, what if we went in and repurposed those wedding flowers that would be thrown away at the end of one night when they were still really fresh and had weeks left to bloom. And so that's how we started, just really random and creative. And we decided to try it out. It was really like trial and error at first. We didn't expect it to go like, we didn't expect the whole thing to go a certain way. We just wanted to put our ideas out there and act on our thinking in that moment. And now we have repurposed over $500,000 worth of flowers and have repurposed flowers from over 70 weddings.
That's amazing to hear. So, I mean, thank you everyone for sharing. And I couldn't even jump in. It was honestly so inspirational because you can see, and for the audience, every single person here on the panel having their own kind of story and their own personal struggles, even, for example, and how they were able to take that and build that into a project that you're hearing about today. So it's really great to hear. Kind of tying into what Eliana said about mentorship. I think mentorship has probably been an important part in all of your journeys. And maybe we can start with Eliana again, just going back to what has mentorship done for you? How do you maybe seek mentorship? How does that shape your experience, your confidence, and eventually ND Connect to this day?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, I think it's just like a shortcut for figuring out a lot of things you'd otherwise really have to learn like the hard way. it's just so helpful to be able to talk to somebody who's been able to figure out some systems and strategies that have worked for them, whether it's in like a more like entrepreneurship context or in like a this is kind of what's worked for me in my life context. Um, yeah, I've definitely saved so many, like probably years of my life, and it's really, increased my chance of success just being surrounded by people. But I think also mentorship, it's not even just about like the practical part, but it's also about knowing that you're not alone and there's people that like care enough to show up for you and be there and take the time out of their day because they also believe in you and what you're doing. I think as entrepreneurs, especially, coming from a background that's very non-traditional, to entrepreneurship, being like not having maybe traditional experiences there. I think just the feeling of like other people like believing in you and being there makes a big difference because it helps you believe in yourself. And was that the whole question,
Yeah, no,
Sylvie?
you covered it perfectly. Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess touching on the mentorship part, one thing that I think from my experience really made YC stand out was the community, was the mentorship aspect of it. Because like even though there's not 1,000 people in this Zoom call, it's not a bad thing, right? Everyone here is attentive, is listening, and we have such a great panel of speakers and even staff here who can give their own 2 cents on whatever is going on and could really just chip in a little bit and hopefully even save years off someone's life. So maybe we'll go to Elva and maybe you could talk about some of your mentorship experience if that really helped you in the 2020 mission.
Yeah, during the Youth Impact Challenge, I remember we were paired up with mentors, and we were paired up with um, someone, a successful person named Alex, and that was really, really helpful. And he provided us with a lot of support. And one thing, when I was little, like I used to think, or like 2 years ago, I used to think that I used to be really offended almost when, they would question us, like, oh, like, what about this? Like, have you thought about that? What would you do if this happened? And then I used to think that, like, they were kind of like criticizing us, being really nitpicky about our project. But then I later realized that they're really just setting us up for success. They're trying to make sure that our plan is realistic and doable. So I later realized that that mentorship was very, very, very valuable.
That's great. And speaking of, okay, setting people up for success, I can only pass it on to Dragos, who I guess he sets people up for success in his own path peer endeavors. So maybe talk about if you received any mentorship and now how do you provide that mentorship to others? We saw some other resources in the chat, but I'm sure you could elaborate more.
That was a clean transition. I like it. Um, so I think you guys got it. Like, it's just yeah, it's shortcuts, as Eliana said. I think what differs mentorship from ChatGPT or like AI, where they're like usually that's actually better answers for your questions, is that mentors, people can give you advice that you didn't ask for. So unsolicited advice, because the answers you get are only as good as the questions you ask with AI. But with a mentorship, you'll like ask a question and they'll say, "Oh, you're not even asking the right question. Like, stop thinking like this and do this completely other thing that you consider." So that is why mentorship is so powerful, and that's why I built Pathbeer, because it's very hard to do that with AI. So yeah, in terms of how I provide mentorship, yeah, I try to join things like this, give back. I'm trying to think like, so I mean, I coach people, I do career coaching, and when I was building my skills, my career coaching skills, I mentored through Pathbeer. So I think maybe to add some insight there, what's important, sure, mentorship is actually very beneficial for you as well. I recommend doing it because you learn more. Like the teacher learns more than the student because you're kind of describing something that you never had to answer. So I hope that was the point of the question. Yeah, like getting mentors is really powerful, but also mentoring people helps you with your own success as well.
No, I like that. That's a great answer to the question. Yeah, I know I got nothing to add. That's awesome. Yolanda, anything else to add on?
Not much. I think everyone covered it pretty well. And yeah, you guys, I think as we grow up, we'll meet a lot of people, mentors that will come into our lives, and it's really nice to keep that connection as well. Like sometimes a mentor is not temporary. They could be a mentor where they could become your friend, and it's really great to kind of grow and grow and kind of have that mentor throughout a period of time. That's something I found really awesome. So yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Kind of moving on to the next question here. Talking about the project specifically. Obviously, you guys have heard the success stories. These people are all great in doing what they do, but um, from an outsider perspective, talk about maybe how your idea evolved. So over time, was it the same? Did it change? Maybe we'll start with Yolanda this time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, as I said before, nothing was kind of unexpected because we didn't expect anything. We didn't, I guess, have a vision for exactly how we planned this out. It kind of, you take action and you take one step at a time, and you take a step, you evaluate, and you think about, oh, what step should I take next? And then you kind of just go with the flow. I think the thing is you always have to think about what you want to put into your organization or what impact you're trying to create. And especially it's helpful when you have a team because different people put in different ideas. And just by, I guess, I think a lot of our team's growth came from the team members and different ideas and how we thought about Repeat Floral's future differently and how we collaborated through it all. So having that unity within a team and just letting like your ideas take course and taking action and seeing what works and what doesn't. So Repeat Floral started out kind of how it just proceeded, but we also added a lot of individual things that we thought were important to us, such as I really care about the kids who have mental health issues, youth especially, that is on usually that's developmental disabilities, because my younger brother does have who is on the autism spectrum. So not only do we repurpose wedding flowers, we also incorporated the act of getting mental youth with mental health disorders to come and repurpose these flowers with us so they could experience the joy of giving back to the community of like playing around with the flowers and then giving them out to the nursing homes. So I think it's just being creative with your ideas and testing them out and acting on your ideas.
No, that's awesome. And it's really great how you're able to draw even familial connections to then get involved with Repeat Floral. That's amazing. Um, Maybe Elva, do you have anything to share about how 2020 mission might have changed over time?
Okay, yeah. At the start, 2020 mission, the very beginning just started with setting up donation boxes, and collecting those glasses, cleaning them in my backyard, and then packaging them in Ziploc bags. Now, or last year, we were actually trying to get sort of like a website started up. We were hoping that people could kind of have like an online shopping experience, but for free for people who need glasses but maybe can't afford them. That idea, we didn't really follow through. Maybe that's a good idea for the future, but right now, maybe not so doable, especially with, you still need to find lots of funding and have the right people with the right skills to make a website. That's a pretty big thing. And so now this is kind of a secret, I guess. We're kind of shifting, we're trying to make like a youth like fellowship program where we kind of kill two birds with one stone. We are actually going to maybe try sending other youth to mission trips like we did last year so that they could also have those same experiences, and hopefully we can spread more awareness on these vision impairments and vision care. And doing this, we're also, obviously helping underserved communities by prescribing glasses. So you can kind of see how within just 2 years, our mission has kind of changed a lot, even though it seems really simple.
No, that's amazing. And I echo that. Hopefully we get that fellowship going soon. Maybe I'll turn it to Eliana now with ND Connect. Obviously, the app has probably grown and shifted throughout the years. what are some of the maybe pieces of feedback that you received from your users? How has that changed over time?
I'm muted. I think the core idea that we started off with is the same, but it's definitely like evolved over time. I think we recognized that like mentorship was a really important need at the beginning, but initially we were thinking more like career mentorship specifically. And I think now we take a much more like holistic approach where people just need to connect with each other as like human beings. And that's why we kind of like using the word like friendship. So it's kind of a mix of like friendship and, more of like a social club kind of vibe. Um, One of the big learnings for us is, early on in startups, they always say like build for yourself. But like you are also not your whole like community. And so I think for me, like when I was thinking about, okay, what are the challenges with like mentorship? Why is it difficult to find people? I am somebody who doesn't struggle with like the reaching out part of finding a mentor. Like I can like network with people. I'm happy to like reach out to people on LinkedIn, whatever else, but it's more about having like the right information and knowing that they're like open to it. But we realized that one of the main barriers to people connecting was a lot of people feel very nervous reaching out and, setting up like a coffee chat and that sort of thing. And so that took us a while to learn. Like initially, like my main thing is after we've connected, I'll like fall off with somebody because I'm like, oh my gosh, setting a scheduling link and then making sure it's in my calendar and like all like the administrative work around that. Like that's like the part that's like hard for my brain, but the majority of people in our community struggle with like that like first like let me like yeah say hi and like what do we talk about. And so we've been redesigning a lot of our process around that and also expanding like the offering, so it's not just like you send somebody a connection request and then that's that. It's like there's different like live opportunities to connect. We're trying to create ways that we facilitate group mentorship, and we're initiating the connections between like everybody in those spaces. um we just hosted a like one-to-one like curated connections like event for the first time, and so eventually we want that to be like in the app, but right now we're still kind of figuring out like what's like the best way to do this, how do people like match with each other. And so there's definitely like a lot of value that comes just from like trying things and then making your community feel comfortable enough to give you really honest feedback. Like I always say, like you're never gonna hurt my feelings. It's gonna hurt my feelings if you don't tell me, because then I'm gonna be wasting my time and doing the wrong thing. So like please, 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 if you're a nice person, like tell me like the honest, hard, brutal truth. And also being open to receiving that instead of being defensive and saying, well, like, explaining it, just like really listening and then being like, thank you so much, and like showing that gratitude. I think that that's helped us build something that actually meets like material needs of the people that are using our platform. Although definitely still a work in progress.
Yeah, no, lots of great points there. The feedback definitely an important part, both on the receiving and the giving end. And the other thing you mentioned about reaching out to people, I find that too. It's just hard to like, I mean, cold outreach. Like you need to have a certain level of like guts in you, and it has to be a certain time of the day for you to actually send those messages out. Maybe someone that could give some guidance on that would be Dragos. I'm sure you're familiar with the game, and maybe talk about how the landscape has changed over the years. What are some trends, maybe even that you've noticed as people job hunt, right? Like that's a huge part of life, and that's where you've shifted now. What are some of the major things you've noticed?
So I'm kind of confused with the question. Am I still answering the original one with the idea evolving over time or providing feedback on something else?
Maybe more even on just like how the job market has shifted. What is it like for youth to look for employment nowadays? Because I think that's definitely something you could
Yeah,
elaborate on.
way harder. Right now, the unemployment rate for new grads is the highest it's been in 2 decades, if you exclude the pandemic. So it's much harder. Like, I think the difference between like the very best and the very not the very best, like the bottom is it larger than ever, because the very best are using AI to job hunt and they know how to use it, and then they're just beating everyone else. So it's just like there's more, uh, there's a bigger difference. Trying to think what else. So AI is obviously the biggest one. There's so many ways to use AI in job hunting that almost no one is using, and that's what I'm trying to develop right now. And I already have some like custom GPTs where I help with that. Um, how has the job market changed? So I actually had a sorry, you're muted, Kobe.
Sorry. I was like, maybe you could give some examples of like maybe a recent example of someone you know that you've mentored that has maybe struggled or has succeeded in the current job market.
Um, so like, okay, so specific person. So, um, okay, so one of my course takers, she just landed a job, an accounting job at Deloitte. So her resume and cover letter were very like generic and simple, and then I showed her how to use AI to craft them really strong because like resumes and cover letters are basically, I mean, cover letters are broad and they're very creative, but resumes are solved. Like there's a standard way to do. It's like here's what makes them strong, and AI knows that. So, um, you just the problem is I think with most people are using AI wrong in the sense of they're saying, "Hey, do this for me." So it actually applies to your business as well. It's like instead of asking ChatGPT, "Hey, do this for me," you need to provide like a lot of context, but also ask you questions such that it provides better answers, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I, it's like kind of a simple thing, but a lot of people are missing. You want to have a conversation with AI to be able to achieve your goal. It's not like guidance. It's like do this. So yeah, kind of with what happened with the girl with Deloitte, she was able to brainstorm using AI, using my prompts, to brainstorm the hidden gems that were missing on her resume.
Hmm.
Like she just forgot to add very impressive stuff, but AI helped uncover that. So it's the same thing with cover letters. Um, like you can research way faster with AI. You don't have to go through all the company websites, all the stuff. So now, because I feel like the standard is higher, and if you want to stand out, um, you have to use all these tools.
Yeah, definitely a great example. And I think that's awesome. The fact that your client landed a job at Deloitte, that's incredible stuff. Super impactful. And staying on the idea of impact, maybe Yolanda, could you give us some real stories, examples of maybe some social environmental impact of repeat floral?
Yeah, of course. So I think one thing that's really real and tangible that you find with repurposing wedding flowers, especially if you do it in person, is when you actually send them to nursing homes and you see the joy on the elders' faces and they're like, "Oh, tell me about the story of where these wedding flowers are from." And you tell them they're from a hotel, this lovely couple. We had just a pickup last week, Wendy and Lawrence, and how they would love to see, I guess, where their flowers went. And sometimes there's like email exchanges between the nursing home and the wedding couple who donated as well. I think that's like a just showing that mm, you get a strong feeling of joy from looking at both sides, and both sides also get a strong feeling of joy from like giving and receiving. So it's like a very sustainable way. It's like joy is being sustained in a way. And also with flowers, it's like we know we repurpose over 1,200 big bouquets of flowers. And that's a lot of flowers that most weddings at the end they just chuck away. And that's so sad. Think about it. Like that these flowers could bloom for so much longer. So I think that's a really like straightforward environmental impact.
That's amazing. That's honestly really
Mm.
great to hear it, to have those stories as well. And the wedding couples to then know about where their flowers are gone is also a super great initiative. Maybe
Thank you.
Elva, if you have any similar stories, I can think of a few that maybe you could touch on.
Yeah, the first story that comes to mind is with this man named Jose, who we met in Guatemala. When we were testing his vision, he couldn't even read like the top row. You know, when you're getting your eyes checked, we have like the big sheet, and then there are like big letters at the top, and it goes smaller to the bottom. Couldn't even read the top part. And then after we tested his vision, found a perfect match of eyeglasses, we gave that to him, and he was actually able to read all the way down to like the very bottom of like the eye test sheet. So that was really, really heartwarming. He said all this in Spanish. He said, "Oh, how beautiful it is to read. I can see everything. It's great." And he was crying and he hugged all of us, the volunteers. And that was just a really heartwarming experience that we hope that other youth can also experience.
Amazing. And not to mention, I think he was a construction worker as well. So his job must have been impossible not being able to see anything, and it's just a huge safety concern as well. And then lastly, I'll pass it to Eliana. Maybe talk about an example of someone who was in your community, received great friend. What was the term? Friendship?
Center, yeah,
Friendship? Yeah, awesome.
for sure, yeah. And then we had a couple people recently, just in the past like month. Yeah, it's two or three. So there are two or three different people, at least two different people, that have been out of work for like 2 or 3 years now and actually got a paid employment opportunity through somebody else they met in the community. And like that feels really good to me. Like there's a lot of power in like networking and helping you find work. But a lot of times, many neurodivergent people, especially autistic graduates, don't have equitable access to social capital. And so being able to see people say, hey, my company's hiring or my team's hiring. Like, if you think you're a good fit, reach out to me, let me help, like, get your foot in the door. Um, yeah, and seeing that kind of like pay off for people, that's felt really good. And just seeing, people feel more economically secure and hopeful about the future. And then we also have had a couple people like meet up and like in person recently too and just say, I felt like really like alone. I've like never met anybody else that was like me. This is like the most helpful resource that I've accessed in my last 20 plus years of trying to access supports for like my disabilities. And so that also felt like I don't know, really, really nice feedback. And again, I think we're still growing and we have a long way to go to like be where I want us to be, but it's nice to hear that we've been having such a deep impact on at least some people.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned only in the past 2, 3 weeks too. So that just shows you how many people are on the platform and how many people are finding it useful. Um, in the last couple 15, 20 minutes here, I'll maybe transition it to more of like the reflections and advice kind of part. So maybe uh Dragos, talk about what advice you would give someone if they're hesitant to apply, they're not sure of their idea, they're not sure if it's good enough. What would you say to them?
Hmm. I mean, I don't want it to seem cheesy, but like just do it. There's nothing stopping you. Um, and like even if you don't win it, you're you still win because you're building the skills. So for me, I was really bad at like I basically didn't have any skills like years ago, and I just kept like failing. I just kept getting rejected from like all the accelerators, all the pitch competitions, messing up sales calls, messing up like customer service, anything, right? Um, that every single thing you do just builds your skills. So the fact that you're you have a goal, you're motivated, you're like gonna try as hard as possible, and you have like a huge upside, 5K or whatever it is. Um, like what's stopping you? Don't don't let fear like control your life. Just do it.
I like that. That's awesome. Maybe I'll even pass it back to Eliana. And I assume you're doing ND Connect now full time and really helping the neurodivergent community with all the time you have. What is, how did you know that transition was going to come? And maybe even talk about your team and how that shift from YC project early stage to now your thing. Now that's your thing that you do on a daily basis that you work on. What is that
Yeah.
transition like?
I really agree with what Drago said, where especially if you're like new to entrepreneurship, and if you're somebody who's like really anxious, like I'm a very anxious person, I have a lot of imposter syndrome, as many of us do. Sometimes you wanna like wait forever and you don't feel like ready to do something, but the reality is you're never gonna be ready and you do just need to like do the thing. And the way that you get good is by putting in like the reps. A lot of times when you think, oh, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, you're comparing your first attempt to somebody else's like hundredth or thousandth attempt that, you're seeing on the internet. So, everybody starts somewhere and like nobody's expecting you to be perfect. And I think if you go into it with like good values, good intentions, like people will also give you a lot of grace. And there are a lot of people that will want to be there and like helping you along the way because they see that you're committed to this thing. So, yeah, I had a mentor or a professor once told me that commitment is where the magic happens, and I think that that's very, very true. So just try and see how it goes. And you also don't need to be like full time on your thing yet, right? Like you can try and do it on your weekends, on your free time, and like check in with yourself and see how you're enjoying it and how it's feeling to you. Um, but yeah, just definitely apply to YSC.
That's great stuff to hear. Yes, definitely apply that YC. Maybe on the contrary here, for Elva and Yolanda, obviously you guys aren't doing that full time right now, but what is that like sustaining a nonprofit organization for the long term? And what are some of your future plans in terms of having that recurring impact that you guys are currently having? We can start with Yolanda.
Well, a big thing about sustaining is I think having more people on the team that has the time to sustain it. So right now my role is kind of like overlooking the organization, which is I guess you could say it's less time consuming because the active volunteers are those who are going out there and spending hours to repurpose the flowers, right? And I think one big thing that actually Shitanshu introduced to me was to let go when you're building something. Is that when you're a leader and you kind of have full power over the organization, it's hard for it to grow in sometimes because you're you can only do so much by yourself. Sometimes you have to let go and you have to let other people take the lead and pour their vision into your organization. And work as a team kind of to distribute the workload. So that's how I have time to still overlook repeat florals because my amazing team members who are backing me up. And about future development, I think it's always good to try something new, always be creative, always change things up a little. So look for new opportunities, such as we applied for UBC grants for Repeat Floral this year, and we're looking to do new collaborations with like projects with the nursing homes. So that's coming up, and we're really excited about that.
That's great stuff, and really excited to hear about that UBC grant as well. So hopefully you guys keep getting those, keep making impact. And then I'll popcorn it off to Elva, maybe talk about that long-term impact direction for 2020 vision.
Yeah, so kind of similar to Repeat Floral, we've also been nonstop applying to a bunch of grants because mission trips obviously are very, very costly. You have to pay for, the flight, the accommodations, and all the necessary materials and equipment. So yeah, we're continuously applying for a bunch of grants so that we can send more people on mission trips, hopefully. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much like our long-term kind of goal. We want to go on more mission trips. And obviously we can't do this just with only us three, the co-founders, because we can't be going away like every month or every 2 months, right? So right now we're also trying to hire more and more volunteers so that they can also help out as well, because this is definitely not a one-man job. This is like at least we need. I remember on our last mission trip we had maybe 15 plus volunteers. Yeah.
Great point, and definitely something that Yolanda touched on as well. So great stuff. Maybe at this point, we'll pass it over to the chat. If anyone has any questions, if you guys want to drop a question for the panelists in the chat, we're happy to take some audience questions as well. And then for the panelists, feel free if there's any questions that pop up, just take it on. Oh, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Paul. Like it's incredible to uh, hear about your journeys, those stories of impact, and also like how, like honestly, even for me as an innovator who's trying to figure things out myself, like so many kind of key golden nuggets of information and advice. I guess a question I would have for you folks is kind of what keeps you up at night in terms of that next challenge? I know sometimes with entrepreneurship, innovation, there's this like image of, oh, it's so everyone should do it, and it's so like like it's all positive and all, and that's great. Like there's a lot of good things about it. And there's reasons why people should do it, but then and you touched on this a little bit, right? Like whether it's funding or just sometimes it's not an easy journey, right? Like there's real barriers that you're trying to figure out. So I guess what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your innovation journey, and kind of what's keeping you folks up at night in terms of your ventures and trying to get it to that next level of scale? But also, I think what's also really underrated is sustainability and just keeping the work going. It doesn't always have to grow, grow, grow. It's not just keeping the work going. It's just important and valuable. So yeah, so where are folks being challenged with right now?
I'm happy to hop in. I say that I'm doing this full time, which is true, but like also I am not making the salary that I did at the job I left. Like not even close. Like, not even close. So I think it is like that kind of sacrifice. And then also it's like really stressful to be in a position where you're always the person that needs to make sure that like you and your team has enough to like afford groceries and rent and like there's been a lot of times where like I've personally put in my savings or like transferred my co-founder because, they're going through something and then need a little bit more this month or like whatever else. And so there is a lot of that. I think sometimes the cost of a more creative career, at least at the beginning, can be that instability and that insecurity, and that can feel hard. I also have balanced other jobs, contract work, that kind of thing while building, and like I have gotten burnt out from doing it. Like it has been like a lot to take on. Um, so that it's not always like glamorous. I think especially if you're trying to do something more impactful, I think that sometimes the types of funding that are available to you can be more challenging. We're like a cooperative, so we're in like an in-between space of like, not quite nonprofit, but not really like a traditional like startup for profit either. So, um, it took us some time to figure out the landscape and like find our people that were in a position where they were able to help us too with some like initial capital. Um, and if you're just starting out, grants are definitely very helpful, but they can be competitive and take a while to get. So
Great advice overall. Dragos, go ahead.
I can jump in up, including myself. Just skip steps. They try to go for the massive idea before doing the before like acing the. So let me give you an example. For me, I basically with Path Peer, I was trying to be like extreme, and that's where I started, and I didn't make money for a very long time. So it was actually it would have been better if I do things like solve problems manually. So for example, like consulting for companies. So if I did recruiting for companies, I would have made more money, right? It's basically you can consulting kind of you can do the same thing as a salary. Um, and then from those lessons and from that income, you build the big idea. He is like, don't skip the easy businesses. You should probably take the easy path. It's hard enough. So take the easy path. Instead of like doing the massive, like revolutionary idea, do an agency first. Agencies are like so much easier these days. Do coaching, make good income, and then you can use those resources to invest in like riskier. So, and with like agencies and coaching, those are proven business models that people pay for. You don't have to do research, uh, copy paste what people are doing. There's so many YouTube videos, like hours long. Um, there's like communities, like pay $100 a month, whatever. Um, what else? Like AI will basically tell you like step by step as well. So do like copy paste first, and then you can change the rules. Try to learn the rules, copy paste the process. Okay, how did this person their sales calls, follow the templates, do this, make good money, and then use that as a strength. Use that like as a stepping stone to the big thing.
That's very impactful. That's honestly a great piece of advice. I need to listen to that too because even physically, when I run up the stairs, I try to skip steps, which I should maybe just take it one by one. Yeah, both literally and metaphorically. And then Elva, Yolanda, if you guys have any advice or answers to Shitangshu's question.
Yeah, I could go first. For me personally, it's finding like a good balance between I'm a student, so schoolwork and also 2020 mission. I felt like it's actually like a lot of work. For example, applying to grants. I'm a pretty slow writer, honestly. I'm not as fast as Kobe. So when I'm writing grants, it can be a little bit, frustrating, and this keeps me up at night. When I spend so long writing a grant, but I'm not even sure if I'm even gonna, get the grant, right? You spend so much time, maybe 2 to 3 hours on a single grant. And so right now, to kind of alleviate this workload, we've hired sort of volunteers to also help us write these grants. Having a monetary or having a paid job is kind of more gives like people more incentive to help out. And honestly, if we do get the funding in the end, it's really worth it, right? If we let's say we pay them minimum wage. And if they win a 5K grant, that's already paid off, and we have lots of money left over. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think very similar money and time, how much you pour into the organization, how much you get from it, and also like what can you do to make it sustainable. And so we've thought a lot about making repeat floral because wedding planners have told me that if you want to, you could make the pickups paid for. We could ask the wedding couples to pay for it. And we haven't started doing that yet, but maybe in the future we will because we do have enough grants to keep the volunteers happy. We can pay off gas, we can pay off maybe a snack or a late night dinner that they're having while they're doing their volunteers work. So that has been going well for us. But if we want to expand faster, if we want to reach more people, I think a paid position is like making maybe repeat floral in some ways for profit, not for profit, but just sustaining that the profit is a good idea. Something we're working towards.
That's great to hear. And you guys really touched on all the different difficulties and struggles that a young founder might have. I guess any last questions from the audience? Oh, sorry. What resources or tools have helped you most in your early days? Even if it's just a list off like, 2, 3 things. I know Dragos even mentioned just basic tutorials, copy pasting the formula, but what is like one good resource or tool that you guys have used? Yeah. Eliana, do you want to go first?
Sure. I don't know, like there's like I think who your team is really, really important. And then they have like these like co-founder dating questions. It's like 50 questions to explore with a potential co-founder. When I did Next 36, like the accelerator program, um, there were like a ton of founder breakups. There were like 90% of the teams at least had a founder breakup. It was like pretty wild. And one of the things that's really helped me like go for now like 2 years building this is the fact that I have two like incredible co-founders, and it took me time to like vet them and figure out like who are the right people to be who are the right people to be working with based off of like what I need, who I am. So these questions definitely helped a lot and just finding that like initial alignment and then also like trialing like working together as well after that.
So I dropped all the resources I've gathered over the years. It's a little bit messy because I haven't looked in option. I recommend looking at how to be productive, how what's called / progress faster. and I think it's the concepts. Yeah. So if you open concepts, this is like the stuff that makes you much more productive. So yeah, take other ones is I think in general what you never like jump into entrepreneurship. You kind of just ease your way in. Like you start listening to podcasts, read a book, uh, or you're doing like part-time or something. Just put it like consume it as much as possible. That's how I got into it. Um, I started with like Dragon's Den. I watched like all the seasons. Uh, I recommend that, even though it's not realistic, but it gets you interested. And then get in the resources, look at the podcasts. I think the exciting ones, like how I built this. That's a really good one. Look at YC Y Combinator. So let me see if I can find it. And yeah, just watch all the videos there. Yeah, I think it have all the resources. Like information is free these days. There's so much information. The question is like, can you change your behavior? That's the hard part. So think of it as like going to the gym. You just keep pushing yourself every day, and then over time you become like a. But no one starts like a beast. No one starts amazing. You just have to start where you're at, and then eventually, over years, you get to your goal.
Amazing. I like that. And definitely agree on like there's so many resources out there. You just have to go find it and work on it consistently. Elva, do you have any resources or tools to add?
Yeah, in our early days, I think mentorship was probably one of the most helpful things because asking your friends can be a little bit of a challenge because like they sometimes friends aren't really willing, don't really want to hurt your feelings. So if you want their input on an idea, they'd be like, "Yeah, that's a really good idea." They'll just encourage you, and that's great. But sometimes you need different perspectives and more, what's the word like, uh, critical feedback or yeah, critical feedback. And I vividly remember on a call last year, I think, with Shitangshu, we were proposing the idea of the kind of the online glasses store, the online website. And Shitangshu asked us, "Oh, how would you prevent people from exploiting your free glasses?" And that was a question that I think of to this day. How are we going to do that? And right now, I'm thinking maybe we could have, doctor referrals. The eye doctor has to sign saying, yeah, you're eligible for free glasses or something like that. But yeah, the overall takeaway, seeking mentorship and specifically advice from people that maybe you're not super, super close with, like your friends, because, sometimes they're not completely honest.
Amazing. And I guess that really ties into Yolanda's point really well is using people as a resource. Do you want to elaborate on that one?
I think you get a lot of growth by experiencing, I guess, going through experiences. Your experiences kind of build your knowledge. And so when you talk to people who give you ideas, it's kind of they're using their experience to back up what you're doing. So it's just like without experience, you're getting a lot of people's experiences. So, and also people's minds are really fluid. Instead of using a tool, I think everyone has a different perspective on things because of their different experiences. So, talking to a lot of people who might have ideas, people, especially people who are involved in that industry you're trying to work with, could give you some like really cool ideas.
Great. No, awesome answer. I guess to wrap it up, I'll give each of you guys, maybe Yolanda, you can start again. Where can people find you? Um, plug yourself, plug all your platforms, and repeat floor as well.
Sure, I think I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat. And on Instagram, Repeat Floral is just at repeat.floral.
Okay, Elva, how can people find you or 2020 mission?
Um, LinkedIn is a good way, Instagram, 2020 mission. I'm just gonna put maybe all the links in the chat because sometimes I don't even know my own username, so I'm just gonna put it in the chat if that's okay.
Okay, Eliana, anything that people should know?
Yeah, I put my LinkedIn in the chat, so feel free to connect with me there. And also, ND Connect is open to anybody who is neurodivergent or feels like they relate to ND experiences. You don't need to have a formal diagnosis. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out.
Amazing. Dragos, anything else?
I think Dragus is frozen for me.
Oh, I think he's gone.
Okay, I think you're back. Go ahead, Jax.
Sorry, I don't know what happened with, like, my whole Zoom froze. Um, yeah, I just put my LinkedIn in the chat, and I was sharing a bunch of resources as I went, so maybe scroll up. But if you missed them, feel free to ask me on link. Yeah, yeah, can I just connect to me? Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, with that, I think we're gonna wrap up the alumni panel. Thank you everyone who stayed to the end. I know people were dropping out as we went, but for those who have stayed, hope you found value. And again, thank you for joining not only the alumni panel part, but also the information session. And we really hope to see all of your project proposals come in. Again, feel free, email us, shoot us a message, even message us on Instagram or any socials, and we'll probably get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you guys again. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are in Canada. Take care, guys.